Hi, what's up everybody? Welcome back to my YouTube channel. I was filming some partnerships and campaigns for TikTok and Instagram and just like making fun, cute little TikToks. And I was like, you know what? Let me sit down and make like a more formal YouTube video. Lately I've been into like the vlogging, which I'm gonna keep doing, but I was like, you know what? I want to sit down, and I had previously like written out notes on dating ultrasounds and how we date a pregnancy, because it is a very common question that I get from you guys in my DMs or even from like patients. Like, how do you know how far along I am? Like, how do you come up with an estimated due date? So I thought I'd just sit down and film this quickly. So it'll be a little bit shorter video, but I think it's going to help if you're wondering how the heck we date a pregnancy. So I have notes pulled up on my phone, and let's just jump right into it. First, let's talk about your last menstrual period, also called the LMP. So this is going to be day 1 of your menstrual cycle. So that first day where you get bleeding, like a good heavy flow of your bleeding, that's going to be day 1 of your cycle, and that's going to be the date of your LMP. So typically, if you just took a pregnancy test at home and you call your doctor's office, they're going to ask you if you know the date of your last menstrual period, and that's the date that we're looking for. We use the last menstrual period to date your pregnancy and figure out how far along you are. But this may not always be accurate. A lot of women are really unsure of their LMP, especially if you're not tracking your cycle. It's really hard to like think back and be like, oh my God, what was the first day of my period? This is why I can't stress enough how important it is to track your cycle. One, if you're trying to get pregnant, it's important to track your cycle so you know when you're ovulating and when you have the best chance of pregnancy. 2, it's really healthy to have a normal regular period. So if you're not tracking it, it's going to be really hard to know if you have a good regular pattern. And 3, if you do get pregnant, that LMP is so important. So I can't stress enough the importance of tracking your menstrual cycle. I personally like to use the Flow app. I think it's pretty easy. You just like plug it in, and it's cool because you can also put like symptoms that you're having. If you have like different cravings, if you feel bloated, back pain, like you can also track like when you have intercourse, if you're trying to get pregnant. Like the app is just really helpful. Also has like a lot of like supplemental materials. So like if you have questions about something, you can like plug it in and see if there's an article on it. So yeah, check it out. I like it. Next up, let's talk about ultrasound. Now, we use ultrasound for 2 different reasons. One, we use it to confirm your dates based off of your LMP. So if you said your LMP, I don't know, let's say was May 1st, and then we calculate it and we're like, oh, you should be around 7 to 8 weeks pregnant. So then you come in and we do your dating ultrasound, and we look at the fetus and we do a crown to rump length, meaning we measure that little fetus from the top of its head to its bottom. And with that measurement, we will get an estimate as to how far along you are and how big the baby is. So say you're supposed to be around 7 weeks pregnant, we do the dating ultrasound and it says, yep, you're measuring 7 weeks and 1 day. We're like, perfect. The LMP was reliable, so we do your estimated due date, or we get your estimated due date based on the LMP, because they're so close in their dating that your LMP is going to be the most accurate. Now, say you are someone that has irregular periods, you don't track your period, you don't remember what your LMP is, then the best way to date that pregnancy is going to be that first trimester ultrasound. So you want to try and get this ultrasound before 12 weeks. That's going to be the most accurate. So again, we look at the fetus, we take our measurements, and then based on how big that baby is, we get how far along you are, and then we can estimate your due date. The earlier that you get the ultrasound done, the more accurate it is. As the baby continues to grow, especially in the 2nd and 3rd trimester, we can no longer do a crown to rump length, because that baby is all squished in there now, and it's not as accurate as when it's smaller and in the 1st trimester. So the dating is harder to determine, your weeks gestation, your due date, the further along you are. So if you can and you're able to get a 1st trimester ultrasound, that is the best time to do it. Now, let's say you do know your LMP was May 1st. You go in, you're like, I'm pretty confident my LMP was May 1st. I should be measuring around 7 weeks. Then we go and do your 1st trimester ultrasound, and you're really measuring 9 weeks. So what do we do then? At that point, because there's such a big discrepancy between your LMP date and the ultrasound measurements, we're going to use the ultrasound measurements. Now this is going to vary depending on how far along you are. I'm going to put up this chart on the screen right now. This is from ACOG, or the American College of OBGYNs, and it's what we use to help us date pregnancies that have a discrepancy between the LMP and the crown to rump length in the first trimester. And you can also see it goes into second trimester dating, so you realize how less accurate they are when you do them further along in the pregnancy. That is how we determine your estimated due date when the LMP and the ultrasound don't match up. So here is a picture of a first trimester ultrasound, and you can see at the top of the baby's head and the bottom, so that's the distance that we measure. And obviously you want this done by someone who is certified in doing the dating ultrasound, because you want to make sure the measurements are correct, that the baby's in the right plane or the right view of the ultrasound so it can be the most accurate. Now, when do we change your due date? Again, like I said, we can change the due date if there's a discrepancy between that LMP and that first trimester ultrasound, and it's a pretty big difference in the sizes. We would change your due date at that time. Now, I have a lot of patients who, you know, you do their ultrasound the first trimester, you determine their estimated due date, and you follow them along, and then say at their anatomy scan or at their 20-week scan, you still do a growth ultrasound to check for the size of the baby, but the baby is measuring a week ahead. Or the ultrasound tech tells you, oh, the baby's measuring a week ahead. Then I think that causes a lot of confusions for patients, because then they think that means that their due date changed and that they're going to deliver a week early. And no, that's not the case at all. Again, I'm going to put up this chart here because it really explains how we are able to change the due date depending on the size. So if you look at the bottom, so if you're getting a growth ultrasound after 28 weeks, so in the third trimester, in order for us to change your due date, there would have to be a 21-day difference in the growth of that baby for us to move your due date. Does that make sense? So the baby would have to be either way significantly bigger or way smaller. This is because it's just so inaccurate to do growth ultrasounds later on in the pregnancy. If you look at the chart between 22 weeks and 27 weeks, so right in that second trimester, if the growth of the baby is off by more than 14 days or 2 weeks, then we recommend changing the due date at that time. But again, we don't see this as often, especially if you have a really good first trimester dating ultrasound. Sure, crazy things can happen, but it is much more rare. So case in point, the best way to determine your due date is going off of your LMP and confirming those dates with a first trimester ultrasound. Second best, if you don't know your LMP, go off of a first trimester ultrasound. Just remember, the earlier you get the ultrasound done, the better. Essentially, two things I want you to take away from this video: track your menstrual cycle and get a first trimester ultrasound. All right, I told you guys this one would be short and sweet, but I hope it did answer some questions about dating and how we change due dates, how we determine due dates, and all that good stuff. I love you guys, take care, and stay tuned for more of my videos. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.